In this example, I need to solve this problem right here. Well, what type of problem is it? It's an equation, and I have denominators in it, so it's a rational equation. And how do we solve rational equations? We're going to need to find the least common denominator, and then we multiply every single term by the least common denominator to get rid of our denominators. So to find the least common denominator, I need to make sure all my denominators are factored. The first one is 20 is not, so I'm going to factor it as 4 times 5. And then 4 is 2 times 2. Excuse the terrible handwriting. And my last denominator is factored. So to find my least common denominator, you go to your first denominator and you write it exactly as it is. So I need 5 times x. I go to my next one. I need a 2 times 2 times 5. I've already got the 5 here, so I just need 2 times 2. And lastly, go to my last denominator. Do I already have a 2? Yes. Do I already have an x? Yes. So that is my least common denominator. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20 times x is 20x. Now we need to figure out our restrictions. Those are the values of the variable that make the denominator 0. Because remember, you cannot divide by 0. So to find the restrictions, what we have to do is you set your LCD equal to 0. So I have 20x equals 0. Well, 20 cannot equal 0, so 20x equals 0 when x equals 0. So x equals 0 is our restriction. That is the value that makes this denominator and this denominator 0. So x equals 0 is not allowed as a solution. So now we're going to multiply all 3 terms by my LCD. So I've got 20x, and since I'm multiplying it by fractions, I'm going to put 20x over 1 times my first term, of 3 over 5x equals 7 over 20 times my LCD again of 20x over 1 plus 1 over 2x. Again, don't forget, multiplied by my LCD of 20x over 1. So now I need to simplify. On my first term here, my x is reduced. And 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 24 times, so I land up with 4 times 3 is 12, equals, on my second term, the 20 is reduced, and I get 7 times 1 times x, which is 7x, plus, on my last term, the x is reduced, and 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 20 10 times. So I get 10 times 1 times 1, which is just 10. So now I have a simple linear equation. I only have one lot of x's. I'm going to leave them on the right. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And so I get 12 minus 10 is 2 equals 7x, and 10 minus 10 is 0, so I just get 7x on the right. Last thing, divide both sides by 7. My 7's reduced, and I land up with x equals 2 sevenths. But don't forget, I'm not done. I have to check it against my restriction. Is 2 sevenths allowed? Yes, it's not my restriction. So my solution is not extraneous, and I have x equals 2 sevenths. If I want to prove it's the correct solution, I have to plug x equals 2 sevenths into all the x's in the original equation and see if I get a true statement.